Every day, we see the darker side of the world around us. We witness how people can hurt others in ways that are hard to understand. It's a sad part of life, but it's something we can't ignore. As someone who dives into the world of crime, I'm here to share the most shocking stories and try to understand what drives people to do such things. I'm Michael, and today, I've got another unreal true crime story for you. It was a quiet evening in Bolingbrook, Illinois, just another ordinary night. But inside one home, something had gone terribly wrong. A woman was found lifeless in her bathtub. Her dark hair was wet, there was a deep cut on the back of her head, and the scene didn't quite add up. At first, it seemed like a tragic accident, just a slip and fall in the bathroom. But as investigators took a closer look, red flags started to appear. And the most shocking part? The person who might have all the answers was someone who had sworn to protect and serve. What really happened that night? And how did this one case unravel a shocking story of lies, control, and betrayal? Kathleen Savio was born on June 13, 1963, in Glendale Heights, Illinois. She was the youngest of four siblings in a family led by her parents, Henry and Marcia Savio. When Kathleen was just 2 years old, her parents divorced. Sometime later, her mother remarried, and the family relocated to another city in Illinois. Despite facing financial challenges while growing up, Kathleen, affectionately called Kitty by her family, was determined to build a future for herself. She pursued her education and became an accountant. Friends and acquaintances describe Kathleen as a warm, friendly, and charismatic woman with a remarkable ability to connect with people. At the age of 20, she went on a blind date that would change her life. The man she met was Drew Peterson, a seemingly charming individual who at first glance appeared to be an ideal match. Drew was a police officer in the narcotics unit of Illinois, a role that granted him authority and recognition. Born on January 5, 1954, in Bolingbrook, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago, Drew Peterson grew up under the strict guidance of his father, Henry, a former U.S. Marine, and his mother, Marilyn. He later became the older brother to two additional siblings. During high school, Drew excelled as an athlete and was known for his competitive spirit. His teenage years also saw the beginning of his first serious relationship with Carol Brown. After graduating, he enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1974 and, that same year, married Carol. By 1976, Drew had been discharged from the military, and a year later, he joined the police force in his hometown. Within a year, he was assigned to an undercover role in the Metropolitan Narcotics Squad. His work earned him recognition, and by the time he was 25, he was honored as Police Officer of the Year. However, his personal life did not mirror his professional success. Despite having two children together, his marriage to Carol ended in 1980 after she discovered his infidelity. Carol was granted custody of their children. Drew, known for his arrogance and boastful nature, often bragged to friends about how easy it was for him to attract women as a police officer. In 1981, he met Victoria Vicky Connolly, and they married in 1982. Their relationship lasted nearly a decade before Victoria chose to divorce him in the early 1990s. She cited ongoing domestic abuse as the main reason for ending the marriage, a claim later echoed by her daughter, who had lived with them until she was 17. One particularly disturbing rumor surrounded an incident involving Victoria. While they were still married, the couple had purchased a bar together. One night after leaving the establishment, Victoria was involved in a car accident that required surgery. Some sources speculated that Drew may have tampered with her brakes, but no concrete evidence ever surfaced. It was during his marriage to Victoria that Drew began an affair with Kathleen Savio. However, Kathleen had no idea that he was married. When he finally admitted to being in the process of a divorce, he painted his wife as a drug addict, claiming that he could no longer endure the situation. To Kathleen, Drew seemed like a dream come true. He showered her with gifts and affection, took her on trips, and promised her a stable life. Wanting to settle down, she fell deeply in love with him. Their whirlwind romance led to an engagement just 6 months after their first date. On May 3, 1992, shortly after Drew finalized his divorce, they got married. Over the next 2 years, Kathleen gave birth to their 2 children, but the dynamics of their relationship began to shift. While she devoted herself to raising their family, Drew sought excitement elsewhere. What started as a loving relationship soon turned volatile. Drew's charming facade faded, revealing a controlling and abusive personality. Initially, his mistreatment was verbal. He constantly insulted Kathleen's appearance, calling her unattractive and making cruel remarks about her weight. Over time, his behavior became increasingly toxic, leaving Kathleen trapped in a marriage that was far from the fairy tales she had once envisioned. Drew's aggressive behavior escalated over time. On one occasion, Kathleen, frustrated and exhausted by his constant absence from home and lack of involvement with their children, confronted him. What started as a heated argument quickly turned violent. Drew grabbed her by the arm and shoved her into a table, leaving her with a head wound and bruises across her body. The injuries were severe enough to require a visit to the emergency room. Although the hospital documented the incident, Drew publicly denied any wrongdoing in a televised interview. He justified his actions by claiming that, as a police officer, he had to conduct himself differently than an average citizen to avoid jeopardizing his job. Despite everything, Kathleen chose to stay in the marriage. Meanwhile, Drew, as he had done before, set his sights on someone new, this time a much younger woman named Stacy Cales, who was nearly 30 years his junior. Shockingly, he didn't even try to be discreet. On at least one occasion, he brought Stacy to the house he still shared with Kathleen and their children, spending the night with her in the basement while his wife and kids slept upstairs. Stacy was born on January 20, 1984, in Downers Grove, Illinois, to Anthony and Christine Cales. She graduated high school early and soon took a job as a receptionist at a local hotel, which is where she first met Drew. For a while, Kathleen remained unaware of her husband's affair. That changed in October 2001 when she received an anonymous letter detailing his involvement with 17-year-old Stacy. Though her marriage had been deteriorating for some time, Kathleen was devastated by the revelation. Naturally, she confronted Drew, who denied everything. Overwhelmed with emotions, Kathleen called her sister, crying as she revealed that not only had Drew been unfaithful, but he had also physically assaulted her, throwing her against the refrigerator during the argument. By mid-2002, Drew had moved out of their home and into a new house just a few blocks away, a move many saw as a deliberate provocation. The divorce that followed was contentious, with Kathleen fighting for child support, custody of their children, and a share of Drew's pension. But he had no intention of compromising. Kathleen was a strong woman and a devoted mother who refused to give up without a fight. Their arguments became increasingly intense, and the police were called to her home no fewer than 18 times, each report citing domestic disputes. One particularly disturbing incident took place on July 5, 2002. According to the police report, Drew shattered glass in their home, then forced Kathleen to sit on the staircase for hours while he stood over her, holding a knife and threatening to kill her. Kathleen no longer felt safe, especially since Drew was a police officer and part of the same department handling her complaints. As a result, her reports were frequently dismissed as routine domestic issues, and no real action was taken against him. Fearing for her safety, Kathleen sought legal protection. On November 14, 2002, she sent a letter to the state's assistant prosecutor, detailing Drew's escalating violence and pleading for an emergency protection order before it was too late. She explicitly warned that he knew how to manipulate the system and that she feared he would either take her children away or harm her. Despite the urgency of her plea, her requests were ignored. Kathleen felt powerless, alone with her children, and trapped in a dangerous situation. Meanwhile, Drew officially married Stacy on October 18, 2003, shortly after finalizing his divorce. At 49 years old, he had now married a 19-year-old girl. Not long after, Stacy gave birth to their first child. Stacy, much like the others before her, initially appeared happy in their relationship. She embraced her role as a stepmother, despite the fact that Drew's eldest child was not much younger than she was. Their life seemed picture perfect. They traveled frequently, threw lavish parties, and presented themselves as a loving couple, despite the glaring age gap. But the honeymoon phase didn't last long. As time passed, Drew's controlling nature surfaced once again. This time, his behavior toward Stacy became obsessive. He constantly monitored her phone, tracked her whereabouts, and accused her of things she hadn't done. Then came the night of Monday, March 1, 2004. After knocking on Kathleen's door multiple times without an answer, a concerned neighbor decided to check inside, unaware of the horrific discovery awaiting him. Inside the bathroom, Kathleen was found face down in the bathtub, lifeless. Naturally, Drew was the prime suspect. However, he had an airtight alibi. He was at home with Stacy. He also claimed that, as per their agreement, he had spent the previous weekend with his children before returning them to Kathleen on Sunday. Forensic investigators found no signs of forced entry or struggle inside the home. Although Kathleen's autopsy revealed bruises on her body and a deep head wound, no defensive injuries were reported. The authorities quickly ruled her death an accidental drowning without conducting a more thorough investigation. One glaring detail went unnoticed. The bathtub was completely dry when her body was found. Adding to the suspicion, the lead detective on the case was a close friend of Drew's. The so-called interrogation he conducted with Drew was hardly that. It was more of a casual conversation between two acquaintances. Stacy, standing by her husband, reinforced his alibi, stating that they had spent the entire weekend at home with the children. Kathleen's family was devastated by her sudden and tragic passing. Just days after her death, her loved ones gathered for a heartfelt memorial, remembering her as a devoted mother and a wonderful person. Shortly after, Drew was granted full custody of the two children he shared with Kathleen. Stacy formally adopted them, making it appear as though they were now part of a happy, united household. But the illusion of a perfect marriage didn't last long. As time passed, Drew's controlling nature became more apparent. By 2007, Stacy had grown tired of living under his oppressive rule and began seriously considering divorce. Then, on October 28th of that same year, she vanished without a trace. Her sudden disappearance sent shockwaves through her family, as Stacy had never exhibited behavior suggesting she would willingly leave without telling anyone. Stacy's family launched a desperate search, refusing to give up until she was found. However, Drew showed little concern. In an interview, he made dismissive and sarcastic remarks, suggesting that Stacy was simply enjoying the attention and was probably off somewhere dancing or with another man. Believing Drew was responsible, Stacy's family pointed to the fact that she had recently told him she wanted a divorce, something he was unwilling to accept. As suspicion grew, Drew attempted to shift the narrative. He claimed that Stacy had changed significantly after one of her sisters passed away in 2006, that she had been struggling emotionally, and that she was undergoing treatment for depression. Rather than clearing his name, these statements only deepened investigators' concerns. Authorities began questioning whether Kathleen's death had truly been an accident or if there was something far more sinister behind it. Just weeks after Stacy's disappearance, both the Illinois State Police and the FBI reopened the case surrounding Kathleen's death. In November 2007, her body was exhumed for a second autopsy. The findings contradicted the original report. This time, forensic experts confirmed clear signs of struggle, proving she had fought for her life. Now, Drew was the prime suspect in the deaths of both his third and fourth wives. Instead of keeping a low profile, he embraced the media attention, appearing on talk shows and making arrogant, sarcastic remarks, almost as if he enjoyed the notoriety. Then, in January 2008, the case took an unexpected turn when Drew's own brother, Thomas Peterson, came forward with shocking information. He claimed to have helped Drew remove a large blue container from the house around the time of Stacy's disappearance. Several neighbors corroborated his story, stating that they, too, had seen Drew handling the suspicious container. Thomas also revealed another disturbing detail. He had assisted Drew in placing a call from Stacy's phone, making it appear as though she was at the airport. Not long after, her vehicle was discovered abandoned there. While the search for Stacy continued, the investigation into Kathleen's death progressed. On February 21, 2008, her cause of death was officially reclassified from an accident to a homicide. Just over a year later, Drew was arrested as the prime suspect. Drew's legal team believed they had a strong case, citing the lack of physical evidence such as fingerprints, DNA, or eyewitness testimony tying him directly to the crime. As the trial gained traction, accusations surfaced against the police department, with many arguing that because Drew had been a sergeant in their ranks, the original investigation had been mishandled and riddled with preferential treatment. This scrutiny cast serious doubt on the integrity of law enforcement, raising concerns about corruption and cover-ups. But exposing institutional bias wasn't enough to prove Drew's guilt in Kathleen's murder. The prosecution needed a breakthrough. That moment came when the lead prosecutor orchestrated a legal maneuver that would change everything. On May 31, 2012, Drew Peterson's trial officially began. In a bold and unprecedented move, the prosecutor allowed Kathleen to speak through those who had known her best. The first to testify was Kathleen's sister, Susan. Her testimony sent chills through the courtroom as she revealed that Kathleen had once confided in her that Drew had threatened to kill her and make it look like an accident so that no one would ever suspect him. Next, Neil, a pastor and marriage counselor who had worked with Stacy, took the stand. He testified that Stacy had privately shared her suspicions that Drew was responsible for Kathleen's death. According to him, Stacy recalled waking up in the middle of the night to find Drew missing, right around the time Kathleen was believed to have died. When he returned, he allegedly asked Stacy to lie to the police and provide him with an alibi. Adding to the disturbing revelations, it was revealed in court that Drew had been present during Stacy's police interview, which further suggested he had exerted pressure on her to protect him. The lawyer who had represented Kathleen during her divorce revealed that Stacy had contacted him just days before she vanished, seeking legal advice about leaving Drew. During that conversation, she made it clear that she firmly believed he had killed Kathleen. Prosecutors argued that Drew's motive for murdering Kathleen stemmed from fear. He was terrified that their ongoing divorce proceedings could leave him financially ruined. For 3 weeks, jurors listened to 44 witnesses recount chilling details of Kathleen's fears. One of her friends testified that she had been so terrified of Drew that she slept with a knife under her bed for protection. After hearing all the evidence, the jury, comprising 7 men and 5 women, deliberated for approximately 14 hours. The trial was based entirely on circumstantial evidence and witness testimony, making the verdict all the more uncertain. Before the decision was announced, Drew suddenly erupted, shouting that he had not killed Kathleen. His outburst prompted Kathleen's brother to yell back, accusing him of the crime. Security intervened, removing him from the courtroom. Finally, the jury reached a decision. Drew Peterson was found guilty. He was sentenced to 38 years in prison with no possibility of parole. Despite appearing composed in court, Drew's demeanor quickly changed in the days that followed. His anger turned toward the prosecutor who had sealed his fate. The attorney, however, remained unfazed, hinting that further legal action could still be pursued against Drew for Stacy's disappearance. Meanwhile, tensions within Drew's legal team boiled over. His lead attorney filed an appeal, arguing that the original defense team had botched the trial. Among their grievances was the claim that the attorney had pressured Drew into launching a media campaign before the trial, which ultimately hurt his case. They also took issue with the decision to call Kathleen's divorce attorney as a witness, a move that had disastrous consequences for the defense. Despite Drew's repeated attempts to overturn the verdict, the ruling stood. Kathleen had finally received justice, but Stacy's fate remained a haunting mystery, one that many believed Drew Peterson still had the answers to. While serving his sentence, Drew found himself facing yet another shocking accusation. He was caught on a recorded conversation inside prison, attempting to orchestrate a murder-for-hire plot against the prosecutor who had led the case against him. He offered money to a fellow inmate in exchange for carrying out the attack. Despite his lawyer's efforts to prevent an additional conviction, the court found him guilty once again, adding 40 more years to his original sentence. Over the years, Drew has continued to proclaim his innocence, repeatedly attempting to appeal his conviction. His main argument has been that the testimonies admitted during his trial violated his constitutional rights. The most recent legal development came in 2024 when his public defender requested a psychological evaluation as part of an effort to seek a new trial. The judge ordered the county to facilitate and fund the evaluation of Drew, now 70 years old. After the mandatory 30-day assessment period, the results determined that he was mentally competent to stand trial. Meanwhile, his former attorney found himself in legal trouble, facing contempt of court charges. The issue arose when he allegedly violated a gag order by discussing the case in a nationally televised interview. During the interview, he claimed to have information that could reveal what truly happened to Stacy. The lawyer denied the allegations, but the judge reinforced the order, strictly forbidding him from speaking publicly about the case. That same year, Drew's eldest son, Stephen, who had followed in his father's footsteps by becoming a police officer, broke his silence. He publicly referred to Drew as his hero, stating that his father had always been there for him and his brother. He admitted that the events surrounding Drew's conviction had been deeply painful, making it difficult for him to reconcile the loving father he had known for 36 years with the man accused of such horrific crimes. As for Drew's numerous appeals, none had been successful at the time of this recording. Stacy remained missing, and her family continued to hold on to the hope that her body would one day be found. They remained steadfast in their belief that Drew was responsible for her disappearance and should be held accountable for it as well. This case sparked intense public debate across the United States due to the many troubling aspects surrounding it. At its core, it involved a police officer, someone sworn to protect the public, who had instead become a danger to those closest to him. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.